Welcome to this week's Code Cookie. In this week we will be creating a .NET web service. And the goal of the web service, or the purpose of the web service, is to validate a Swedish zip address or zip code. And we will do this by calling another API. So the first step will be to create a folder structure, like we did with the League of Legends plugin. And then we need to create a project in Visual Studio. You can use Visual Code as well. In fact, we have a guide on how to do it in Visual Code. And after that, we do some settings on the build to output our library to the correct path. And then we start writing the actual method, and then we need to have it inventoried into Zervicepoint so we can use it at all, and that we do with creating provider XMLs. So I'm gonna create folder structure first. And we have the plugin folder. And the API that we're going to use is called Papa API or PAP API. So I will call our new plugin for PAP API. We need to have. I'm going to use the same folder structure that we use in the other plugins. So we have data sources for stuff related to the forms. And we can add activities for stuff related to the workflow. So that's good. Now let's create a project. I'm going to do a library. And we're going with the .NET Framework. API, that would be good. Good, now we have some basic structure here. Okay, so this will basically be the module name, the class name. So let's call it the same. We can rename the CS file as well and the namespace. And save. Let's go on properties on the solution or the project, I mean. Yes. So for our web services, we'll need to have a module or a library that contains all our methods, web services, and then we can have individual drop downs as individual folders here. Good. And the assembly name must match the name of the folder. So I'm going to copy this name. I'm going to change the assembly name. If you don't get this right, it will not get inventoried into Zervicepoint. On the build settings, I want to put it in a special folder. I want to put it in the plugin folder that we just created in here. So that should be good. Saving. That should be fine, actually. Public int divide number. Can I actually take the code example first? But since I already have this, I will just change the name slightly. Save. And then we need to care for the provider XML files, because else we won't get this inventory into Zervicepoint. So let's go to the provisioning, and I already prepared one here. If we have a quick look at it, this key is essential. In the PowerShell providers or the PowerShell client web service scripts, it's just a script here, or a script path. And you need to have assembly directory path. And the assembly, the provider, the .NET provider assembly needs to be specified as well. So you can't just copy a file from your PowerShell scripts or your PowerShell modules. You need to at least have this with the correct path, and this pointing to the data sources folder where you have all your drop downs and web services for your plugin. I took a liberty of adding an API key here as well, and that is for the PAP API. So I already placed that there. Let's see if we can get this into the user web. I need to start my inventory system, and if you're doing this, you need to restart your inventory system, or an alternative way to trigger a new inventory of the client web service binaries. Test zip. There. Let's see if we can find it here now. Okay, so that's the one that I told you about earlier. So we have some kind of inventory error, so I go into the event log. Okay, that's not the one. That's not the one either. Let's see what it's called. Did we build? No, we didn't build. Okay. Shift Control B. Build succeeded. Now we have the DLL there. So I need to restart the inventory system again. It's up. Let's check the event log. That's fine. That's from a different module. I'll refresh here. Divide number, good. Let's add that. Two text fields, 3 text fields. Let's call this result. And what did we want? Denominator and numerator. Numerator. And I can put the standard value in here. Divide by 2, and standard value here 10 perhaps, and let's only copy the function, go on edit, on change, need to put the args in here, the arguments, need a denominator. And a numerator. Oops. Let's try to set it in result. Result. Save and publish. What did we call test zip? I just want the console to see if we get an error. No, we got a result. If you watch carefully, it was a little delay. But now it was instant. So after your app pool has started and you fired off one shot toward this DLL file, it will be consumed and converted to MSIL. And once it's in memory, it will be there, so it will be faster to access it the next time. So if I take 18 now, it goes very quick. So it's much quicker than your PowerShell scripts. So that's a good thing to think about. If you have drop-downs where performance is an issue, it might be a good idea to migrate them from PowerShell to .NET actually. So that's good. That worked. What if we want to use the config? Like we have in the PowerShell scripts, we have the config from the provider XML. Remember, we stored an API key there, so maybe I want to use that in the script, or I do like to use that in the script. We can actually do that. It's quite easy. We just add another parameter here. It's a dictionary with a string object types in it, and call it config. And Zervicepoint, the Zervicepoint provider engine, will automatically fill this when you call this web service. So you don't need to provide it in your JavaScripts. But let's say we want to access the API key. If you write config.api key, we will just get an error there. You can't find that part of the dictionary. So what can we do? We can do like this. Try get value API key, and the result here, take API key value, and this returns a bool, so it's true or false. Also, this the compiler gives me this error, so I need to define this first. I'm just going to go with I'm going to go with string, and oh, it's an object. And perhaps we can put an if around this because it returned true or false, and then we can use the API key value. Let's see if we can return that instead. Oh, okay. Save. I will try to build now. Will probably not work because the DLL file is in use, I think. Taking a lot of time. Okay, I'm going to stop this. Okay, so we get the build error here saying that the DLL file that we have in the debug folder is actually in use or in the build directory. So I need to shut down the app pool. So I'm just going to do IIS reset, and then I'm gonna try again, and build succeeded immediately. So going in here and refresh. So the logic was that if it finds an API key in the config, it should return it through the web service here. So if I'm just okay, so there's the API key. Good. So that's how you implement the config file into your .NET providers or .NET activities, or .NET web services for that sake. So in here, I think we should do some web request towards this web service, and we'll divide this in 2 videos. In the next video, we'll look on how to consume the response from the web service and present a good value through the web service, and finalize our zip lookup. So till then, Merry Christmas.